Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Thursday, June 24th, 2020. I am Andrew Hansen, joined by Sugar Shane Caldwell, and we're here for another KBO podcast. And you know what that means, Shane? Another day of trying to navigate the South Korean weather. Are you ready to navigate the radar with me?
Yeah, we got the meteorologists on the ground over there. We wish we did, anyways. Yeah, last night was quite the bummer after all the research, and it just got wiped out for rain. We knew there was a great chance of that, but yeah, that's the thing about the Korean League. It's all concentrated in one area for the most part, and all it takes is one of those big storm fronts, coming off the water there, and that really causes a lot of issues. And we're getting some of those tonight, although it doesn't look quite as bad. But we do have to have a nice contingency plan here and some pivots in case it goes that way. And then of course on FanDuel they're gonna make part of the slate the Samsung Hanwha game at 5:30. All the other games start at 5:30 Eastern. All the other games start at 2 a.m. Eastern. DraftKings is just the 4 games for 2 a.m. They were smart, so people didn't have to deal with the 5:30 stuff. So that'll make it interesting as well. So we're ready. We're going to be up all night, keeping our eye on the weather and keeping an eye on these lineups and figuring out the best plays.
Yeah, and we really got practice last night with navigating the weather, didn't we? And man, I'm still reeling from that because I was fired up. I was hoping for rain in those 3 games to the north. I built all my lineups for that 2-game slate I was hoping for. And when I woke up at about 4:45 in the morning, those 3 games in the north had been canceled. So I thought, here we go, giddy up. We got this 2-game slate that we're ready for. But then, of course, that 4th game got canceled. And with the 1-game slate, everything was canceled on FanDuel and DraftKings. So back to the drawing board here today. Like you said, though, because of that those rainouts, we have a different slate. 4 games on DraftKings, 5 games on FanDuel with the split. So we'll talk about that strategy as we go. I want to start out with a quick thank you to our sponsors here at DFS Coach Talk. MyBookie.ag will give you the game lines from them. And we mentioned them because they've got a great sign-up bonus for you for DFS Coach Talk members. Go to our website. You can check that out. It's a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And you also get a $25 free play for joining. So we highly recommend that. You can get that on our website and use the promo code CoachTalk. And then TVG, that's where the world watches and wagers on horse racing. And you can get a tremendous offer on our website. It's a $300 risk-free bet. So you make a $300 wager, it doesn't go your way, you get that bet refunded on TVG. So go to our website, click the link, and sign up there. All right, Shane, let's get going with this. Should we call it a 4.5 game slate? Because it's 4 games on DraftKings, 5 on FanDuel. So let's start with Kia and Lotte. And this one, we say it's a 4-game slate on DraftKings, but it could be a 3-game slate. This one's right now at about a 35% chance of rain. So you got to proceed with caution here. But this is a really interesting matchup. We've got Dan Straley, one of the best pitchers in the league, going against Kia, which is full of great left-handed bats. And Dan Straley had his worst outing of the season against Kia, but he's been excellent lately. So will you go back to the well here with Straley and hope that he has a better outing against these Kia left-handed mashers?
Yeah, I as long as this game can play, we're going to have to really keep an eye on the weather as we get closer to 2 a.m. Eastern here. I like Dan Straley. If you look at his last 3 games, the guy's been, he's been pitching really well. 3 great outings where he's pitching 7, 8 innings. He's getting a lot of strikeouts and he's minimizing the damage. So even though Kia did get to him a little bit last time they played, that was, over a month ago, I'm not really too worried about that. I feel like Straley's in really good form. I feel like he's really hot right now. So I will definitely roll with him. And you also have to consider that as we get into the slate, you'll notice there's not a lot of great pitchers in great situations for this slate. So when you factor that in, that boosts him up even higher for me. So to me, he's the number 1 pitcher, even though Kia's got to him. I'm not really that worried about Kia. They're kind of inconsistent, and they don't really scare me that much. They're not a real high strikeout rate team, but they're still 16.9%. So Dan Straley is striking out at a 28.4% strikeout rate. So he's really good. ERA only 2.1. So I'm good with Straley. And he's a little bit mispriced on FanDuel because I think FanDuel actually expected a different Lotte pitcher going tonight because they didn't take into account this whole rainout situation. So they have him priced at $23 on FanDuel, which is the third lowest in the whole slate. So Dan Straley, being that he's one of the best pitchers in the league, is priced really low on FanDuel at $23. So I'll definitely play him on FanDuel as long as the weather holds up. Otherwise, we'll talk about a couple pivots that we can go to if we need to. And he's 9,500 on DraftKings. So that's kind of where I'm at with the pitching in this game.
Yeah, it's a great catch there with that low price on FanDuel. And despite that bad outing against Kia, when H. Cha hit a long ball against him, Tucker and Jiwan Na had doubles and walks. He's still only giving up a 240 batting average to lefties on the season, 2 home runs, and only 160 for righties. So he really has been strong. On the flip side, we've got Minwoo Lee, who did well against Lotte, 6 innings, 2 earned runs, but he's been terrible his last 3 outings. So any Lotte bats here that you like?
Yeah, I'm interested in the lefty. Typically, he's batting 2. Asiop Son. He's very solid, and he is at $13 on FanDuel, which is reasonable, and he's very reasonable on DraftKings at 3,900. I do like also Jung Woo Jeon, who typically bats in the 3-hole there. He's got power. He's been very solid this year, and he's pretty reasonably priced right now, still on FanDuel at $12. And then 4,500 on DraftKings. And then if you want a little bit of value, I do like Dixon Machado at the 5-hole, and he's really cheap on FanDuel at $10. He's got, he's definitely heating up right now. He's had a pretty good streak, and he does hit for power as well. $10 for him against a good matchup against Lee here. And then 4,700 on DraftKings. So you can definitely, and you can look at Jung Ho Lee at the cleanup spot as well if you'd like him. But those main 3 guys, Asiop Son, Jeon, and Machado, are the main 3 guys that I like from Lotte, and they're definitely pretty good. It's a pretty good pitcher to stack against, being that, Woo Lee has not been great.
And I'll give you one more under the radar bat that you could mix into a stack for Lotte. It's Dong Hee Han, eligible at second base and third base on DraftKings. He's only 2,300. He went 2 for 3 against Minwoo Lee earlier in the season. So that's a way to get cheap value there in the infield to pay up for some big bats elsewhere. All right, let's go to game 2 on the DraftKings main slate. And we're looking at the Dinos against KT. And in terms of the mybookie.ag odds, the Dinos are a big favorite, minus 200 behind their stud pitcher Mike Wright. Over under set at 10.5. So Mike Wright, one of the best pitchers in the league, power pitcher, 5-2, 3.8 ERA, but he's going against a KT lineup with some great bats in the middle, left-handed hitting B. Kang that you love, and Rojas, of course, the switch hitter. So what do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, so Rojas has been really good against righties. He's got, I think, 8 home runs, 20 RBIs against them. He's really good there. Mel Rojas Jr. is the number one in this league for hard hit contact percentage and everything. So he's very good. $5,700 for Rojas, which is still reasonable on DraftKings, and $17 on FanDuel. So even though Mike Wright is pretty good, those guys are very elite. So I can see a lot of people sprinkling in at least 1 or 2 of those guys. And Bako Kang has been excellent against righties. Again, 20 RBIs, 9 of his 10 home runs this year have been against righties. So Bako Kang is definitely good. If they decide to pitch to him here, he's definitely been on fire lately, and this guy's probably one of the best power hitters in the league. He's $16 on FanDuel. He's pretty reasonable there. $6,000 on DraftKings. Other than that, it's a little hard to get to some of these other guys, being that Mike Wright is a good solid pitcher in this matchup here. So not interested in that. What about you? Any other interest in the KT lineup here?
That's it. I think I'll just look at those two bats and otherwise try to avoid that matchup. I'm more interested in the other side of this game. So let's look at that. We've got a new pitcher tonight for KT from last night's slate. It was supposed to be Min-Soo Kim, but now it's Jae-Seong Bae, who pitched well against the Dinos early in the season. 7 innings, 7 hits, 7 strikeouts, no earned runs. But he has been struggling his last 2 outings. And for the season now, lefties are hitting .366 against him, and righties have hit 4 home runs, including in his last outing against Lotte. I saw those highlights. He basically hung a slider that just didn't move at all to Jae Jeon and Jung Ho Lee. They both hit home runs to left. So I think there's an opportunity here with both the lefty and righty Dinos bats. Who's standing out for you from the Dinos tonight?
Yeah, I mean, you got your usual, Sung Bung Na, so you're going to be able to get him. Guy's one of the best hitters in the league, and you're going to have that lefty platoon advantage batting third there. So Sung Bung Na, $17 on FanDuel, $6,300 on DraftKings. So he is expensive, so you're going to have to find some value plays to fit him in. And then the catcher, Yu Ju Yang, I think he's worth paying up for, even though he is very expensive. He's really locked in at the plate right now, and he's in a great matchup here. The guy is, especially for compared to most catchers, he's hitting for a lot of power, hitting for a great average. And he's $14 on FanDuel and $6,100 on DraftKings. So tough decision there on DraftKings because he is expensive, but I think it's worth paying up for him. And then I still do like the 5-hitter, Kang, Jin Sung Kang. He's one of the hottest hitters in this entire league as well, and he's $15 on FanDuel, $4,900 on DraftKings, so more of a mid-high price. If you can get him in, he's also really good. And then the value play, this guy did really well for us last week, or it was at the beginning of the week, I think. That actually would have been last week. Is Hee Deong Kwan, and he's typically batting 6th. And this year he's batting .343 average, 5 home runs and 20 RBIs. And the guy's only $7 on FanDuel. And this is a pretty good pitching matchup. I'm not really afraid of Bae here. So he's my value play on FanDuel, being that I didn't find a lot of like value plays on FanDuel that stuck out like, wow, that's amazing. But Kwan from NC here from the Dinos at $7 is a great play. And he's only $3,000 on DraftKings, so I feel like he's definitely a target on DraftKings as well. So I think the NC Dinos are probably my favorite stack here to be able to fit like maybe 3 of those guys in your lineup. Probably my favorite stack for this particular slate.
Yeah, they probably are for me as well. I'm also going to mention Minwoo Park at the top of the lineup. He went 2 for 3 with a double against Bae earlier in the season. He's expensive, $5,400, but you get a little bit of a different lineup construction if you pay up for him. And I got to mention Jae Kang. You talked about him in that 5-hole, 4-5 hole, depending on if Yang is in or out. But I had to laugh because when these guys faced Bae earlier in the season, Jae Kang was batting 9th. And all of a sudden, he's become one of the top 5 or 6 hitters in the league with incredible numbers. So quite a change of fortune. And, he used to be the value play that we were touting in the high 2,000s, low 3,000s on DraftKings. Now he's up at 4,900. So still a nice price, though, for a guy with that much production. Jin Hyuk No, he's also in the mix at 4,300 for me. A nice left-handed bat. Had a good first game back earlier this week.
Yep.
All right, let's go to game 3. Doosan against SK. And Doosan minus 166 favorites on mybookie.ag, over under 9.5. Interesting pitching matchup here. We've got the lefty for Doosan, who's not overpowering at all, Huey Kwan Yu, against this right-hander sidearm pitcher for SK, Jong Hoon Park. I described him on the podcast yesterday, but because he's pitching tonight and he didn't get to pitch last night, I'll describe him again briefly. He only pitches about 84 miles an hour, but with the sidearm release point and this terrific movement that he has down and away from lefties, I mean, it just has so much bite and it's so lively. The 84 to me looks almost like 94 on television. It just really is. It just jumps out of his hand, and he's got this tremendous strikeout rate, 48 strikeouts in only 45 innings. So, his ERA is 4.4, but he does have that strikeout upside. And when he faced Doosan earlier this year, 7 innings, only 1 earned run and 8 strikeouts. So kind of tempting to play him, but, we typically don't use right-handed pitchers against Doosan, these lefty sluggers. And, oh, by the way, they've got J-Il-O coming back into the lineup. At least he's projected to be back in the lineup here at 8:30 Eastern. And so now Park is going to have to deal with Fernandez, Jaquan Kim, who's been hot, and Jay Cha. So what are your takeaways from this interesting matchup?
I mean, it is very interesting. The guy is striking out a 25.3% strikeout rate. So like you said, with that motion, it seems like it's hard for batters to pick up the ball coming out of his hand with that sidearm motion and the good movement he has. But you are a little concerned about all the lefties in the lineup here. Obviously, Doosan is a loaded lineup every single night. So it's really tough because are you stacking Doosan or are you thinking about playing this pitcher? I would say the pitcher from SK, this sidearm guy, Hoon Park, you may have to look at playing him if the first game Lotte and Kia gets rained out, and we know that's rained out, and that takes Dan Straley out of your pool for pitchers then you might have to take a look at Hoon Park and hope that Doosan doesn't get to him because he can rack up some strikeouts, even though he may not get the win because they're not that great of a team. He could rack up some strikeouts, and hopefully he can get 5 or 6 innings and hopefully 6 to 8 strikeouts and just kind of minimize the damage. That's what you hope for there. So it is a tough decision there, but you have to consider him at pitcher. And then for Doosan, on the flip side of that matchup, you still have to look at Jose Fernandez, and you still have to look at Jae Hwan Kim, who's actually really heating up lately. And Jae Hwan Kim is $17 on FanDuel, as is Fernandez. And Jae Hwan Kim is $5,200 on DraftKings, so his price is pretty stable, even though he just had a couple big games. And you got $5,900 for Fernandez. And then there's the Jay Cha, from Doosan is $2,600. They finally raised his price up a couple $100 there, so that's good. He's $11 on FanDuel. I know I see J-Il-O's back. I wasn't really targeting him for this matchup necessarily. But yeah, I think those 3 guys you can look at for Doosan. And if you don't want to stack them because the pitcher is pretty tough to figure out, then maybe you take one. My favorite guy is Jae Hwan Kim, the left fielder there, batting.
Oh, something we would not have expected you would have said 2 weeks ago.
I know. I would always give you guys a lot of flack for playing him because this guy is a star in the league, but he was just in he was in a slump most of the year. He's just really struggling. He looked really bad at the plate. And I know you guys kept waiting for that breakout, and he's finally starting to break out, so I don't think we had him in the lineup when he broke out was the problem. We were fading him.
Yeah. I mean, the last big game he had was against a lefty. So we didn't have much exposure to him. I think I had him in one lineup, but you're right. He finally broke out. So for me on this matchup, if I'm playing 5 lineups, I think I'll go one lineup where I use this pitcher Park, one lineup where I stack Doosan against him. And then other than that, probably maybe just a one-off here or there. Jay Cha is still a great price at $2,600. And then one other value play you can consider is K. Her, third baseman eligible at only $2,200. And when they faced Park earlier in the season and Park gave up 2 hits, they were both to K. Her, a triple and a single. So really nice value there. On the flip side, how about this matchup? I know you're not going to use the Doosan pitcher, because he only has 15 strikeouts in 44 innings. Any interest in any of these right-handed bats against him? Righties are hitting .275 with 4 homers, and we've got Jung Choi and Romack in the middle of the lineup.
Yeah, I like the 3-4 guys. I like Jung Choi, Jung Cha, and Jamie Romack batting cleanup. Romack's only $13 on FanDuel, $4,800 on DraftKings, and then Jung Cha is pretty expensive, $15 or $5,100 on DraftKings. But yeah, those guys are good as a one-off if you need someone in that price range. I think that they have a really good shot at getting some doubles or home runs here and racking up some good points in this lineup. Yeah, because that guy is not really a powerful pitcher. Being that they have the platoon advantage here, he's 5-1, but I think he's had really good run support as well in those wins. Being that Doosan has such a loaded lineup, so I'm not really afraid of him at all. He's kind of just steady, but he doesn't strike anyone out. So there's going to be opportunities for guys to get on base there for SK.
Yeah, and one more note on Jung Cho is when these guys faced off earlier, you walked him 3 times in a row, so he just didn't want to mess with him, and so I'm a little hesitant to play him if Yu's not going to pitch to him. And then one other value play you could look at, Ji Hoon Cha, who bats at the top of the order for SK, usually batting first or second. The first at bats he got this season were against you, and he had a double and a triple against him, and that started a streak where he's had a hit in 19 of the 22 games that he's started. So at 2,600, he's not a bad cash game option on DraftKings. He's pretty consistent, getting on base a couple times per night. So that's game 3. Let's turn to game 4 on the DraftKings slate. It's Kiwoom against LG. LG, the -133 favorites at home, over under 9.5. LG has Tyler Wilson going up against the Kiwoom Bats. And this is a rematch. Back on June 6th, Tyler Wilson faced off against Kiwoom, and it was the same pitcher on the other side, the lefty, Sungho Ho Lee. So both pitchers were solid that game, but Dongwon Park and Byung-ho Park did not play for Kiwoom. So a much tougher lineup tonight for Wilson. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
I think Wilson's still a formidable pitcher, so it's a little hard to attack him. So I think that there's 3 or 4 of those guys that are Kiwoom that are very good hitters. They have a strong lineup, that especially their top 5 or 6 hitters here. Yeah, the top 5. So I'd be comfortable taking a couple of those guys. We love Jung Ho Lee. He's a lefty going up against this righty here, and Jung Ho Lee's just been on fire. And he's been one of the best hitters all year for in this league. So Jung Ho Lee's good, batting third. His price is always stabilized. I don't think FanDuel is ever going to change his price, even if he hits a home run every game. It's $14 on FanDuel, and they actually dropped his price on DraftKings to $4,400. I think because they're looking at a little bit tougher matchup here. So yeah, I think at those prices you have to really take a serious look at him for Jung Ho Lee here. And I do like Byung-ho Park. If I had to choose between the 2 parks, Dongwon Park or Byung-ho Park, I like Byung-ho Park. He's also heating up, hitting for a better average. He's one of the best power hitters in this league. $14 on FanDuel and a very reasonable $4,200 on DraftKings there. So Byung-ho Park. You can also look at Keon Chang Seo, their leadoff hitter. He's really solid. $11 on FanDuel, $3,900 on DraftKings. And then Ha Seong Kim, their second, you got that bats second here. He's a little more expensive, $16 FanDuel or $5,000 on DraftKings. But I would say my favorite plays from Kiwoom would be Jung Ho Lee and Byung-ho Park. Like those guys, they're both reasonable prices on both sites, and they have a lot of really high upside. And I think they can get to Wilson. But overall, I don't really love stacking against Wilson. I think he's good enough to kind of keep them so they don't score too many runs.
I think he is too, but I think it's worth building one lineup again if you play multiple lineups to stack Kiwoom, because like you said, they're so solid 1 through 5, and they're much better against righties. So I think all those top 5 hitters are in play. H. Kim 288, 6 homers against righties. Dongwon Park 333 and 5 homers against righties. I actually like him a little bit better than Byung-ho Park just because of that batting average. Byung-ho Park has the power with 7 homers against righties, but only 222, and that's sort of been the story of his season. Is just kind of a low batting average, but he still managed to hit home runs.
Well, I put Byung-ho Park in the same category as Jae-Hwan Kim, is that they're former superstars that are finally starting to wake up and realize they're superstars now. So right. I want to ride that wave when those guys are hot. So I like both of those guys.
Yep. And also I want to mention Hai Sung Kim, who bats a little bit lower in the order, usually around sixth, with everybody else healthy. 2,400 on DraftKings. He went 2 for 3 against Wilson in the first matchup, and he's a really nice value play. Now, the other matchup here is interesting to me because Sungho Lee is a lefty with an ERA over 5, but he's facing this LG team that struggles against lefties. We know how top heavy they are with lefties at the top of their order. And Sungho Lee is cheap. He's only 6,200 on DraftKings. Not a great strikeout guy, though. 24 strikeouts in 41 innings. Are you open to pitching him on DraftKings as a second pitcher, or is there just too much power here with LG that you're going to avoid that matchup?
Yeah, I kind of want to avoid it on both sides. Really, that's the issue here, because we're looking at. Let me just pull up his. Let me look at his stats here. Yeah, he's only 13.6% strikeout percentage, and he's walking people at a 9% rate. So just didn't really like that. 5.25 FIP and a 5.05 ERA. So just really don't like him as much. Now, on the flip side, there's a ton of lefties like Hyung So Kim and obviously Roberto Ramos that you normally love for LG, but those guys are not as good against lefties. But overall, since this pitcher's not good, I think that you'll upgrade them a little bit, even though it's a lefty on lefty. But it's still really hard to play them because they statistically are not as good against lefties, but the pitcher's not that great as well. So I don't really want to play them. So they kind of cancel each other out. I don't really want to play either of them. And if LG, gets a couple, good hits, it's going to be pretty random. It's hard to predict which one of those lefties is going to actually be able to break through there. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I don't really like the recent form of Ramos. So you could look at KU, their catcher, for 4,200. But, in most cases, I would probably pay up for Don Juan Park. But that's just one opportunity you could look at. So, well, that covers the 4-game slate on DraftKings. Before we get to Game 5 on FanDuel, just want to mention that we do offer memberships. We'd love to have you jump in and join. If you go to our website, you can pick up a weekly, monthly, or annual membership and get right into our Discord area where we chat with our members. Every night we give a free full FanDuel lineup, and we give a player pool on DraftKings for KBO. So we'd love to share that with you. And great option right now with memberships is we're saying that the clock on those memberships doesn't start until July 30th. So a monthly membership, if you start today, will go all the way until August 30th. So we invite you to come in and take advantage of that. All right, Shane, let's go to Game 5. And again, this one is only on the FanDuel main slate. Hanwha against Samsung. That's because they did play last night. So this one starts at the more typical time of 5:30 a.m. So if you're playing on the FanDuel main slate, you've got to navigate 2 different start times and the potential for rain. This one could get rained out. So with all of those caveats, what do you think about this matchup? We've got one of the better pitchers in the league, Buchanan, going up against Hanwha. The terrible team, and they're 277 favorites, over under at 9.5. What are your thoughts on Buchanan?
I mean, the issue here, I would love Buchanan in this matchup, but if you already locked in your lineup with Buchanan at 2 a.m. for the other games, and you have no way of knowing, you can't swap to another pitcher if this game gets rained out at 5:30 a.m. So if you would have to have a really high risk tolerance, and you have to be quite the gambler here to lock on FanDuel, lock David Buchanan into your pitching slot. You only have one slot on FanDuel, and it's really important. You have to hit on that pitcher to be able to cash. And then that the game gets rained out, your lineup is pretty much sunk at that point. So in my opinion, it's not worth risking it. And I feel like this game has a pretty good chance. It's a near 50% chance of being rained out. I don't really like messing with that. And it's a little hard to project the radar right now. We were trying to look at it on the weather, some of the different weather sites, but being that it's so far out still, it's it's 5:30 a.m., which is their time. I think like 6:30 p.m. So we're trying to predict the weather in Korea at 6:30 p.m. And like I said, those storms come off the water there, and they're really hard to project where they're going to hit. This game is kind of more in the southern area of Korea. So in general, I don't really trust this game on FanDuel because you don't really have anyone to swap to if the game gets rained out, and you're going to have a couple dead spots here. So if you are going to do something, then you could play some of these Samsung bats against the Bum So Kim, the pitcher from Hanwha. Is really not, he's not very good at all. He does strike out at a decent rate, strikeout rate 19.6. But his walk rate is 16.8, so he's definitely walking a ton of batters. And then FIP is 6.5, so that's because of the walks and probably giving up some home runs as well. 4.7 ERA. Yeah, so it's a great hitter's park if they play it. The Samsung is the best hitter's park. So you could play some of those Samsung guys, but again, I don't think it's worth it because of the weather risk here.
Yeah. Okay. Good breakdown. Yes, Bunsu Kim is more of a bullpen guy. He's only started one game, so yeah, too risky to take a pitcher here. You could get different with a bat here or there. My favorite Hanwha bat of the lefties is Yun-Won Jung. He's only $8 on FanDuel, and then there are a couple decent prices. Kim is a lefty, so some of these righties like Won-Seok Lee at only $8 in the heart of the lineup, power guy.
Yep. Yeah.
If you want to differentiate yourself, you could go there. But I agree, mostly a fade due to all the things we mentioned before. So that wraps up the 5-game slate here. Just want to quickly mention on YouTube, if you're listening to this podcast, you can watch it on YouTube, and we'd love to have you go over there and subscribe. So you get the notification when the podcast posts every day. And then on Twitter, you can follow Shane at DET Sports Shane. He is the man of Detroit. So DET Sports Shane. You can follow me on Twitter at Language Olympic. Our coach, Joe Sarvadi, is on Twitter at JOESARVADI. And the whole crew is available at DFS Coach Talk. So we'd love to interact with you there. And then Shane runs our Instagram, does a great job there, posting our screenshots and sending out notifications about our podcasts. And so you can follow us on Instagram at DFS_Coach Talk. And Coach's favorite charity here is mambaon3.org. That's MAMBAONTHREE.org. And all of the donations go directly to the survivors of that terrible crash. Shane, any final thoughts tonight?
I think the main thing is just keep an eye on these weather games, and I'm really hoping the Kia Lotte game is going to play because I really like Dan Straley for the top pitcher tonight. So just jump in the Discord with us tonight. We're going to take a look at the weather, take a look at the lineups, and make sure that we got everything on par here, and we're going to be able to make some pivots if we need to. But that's going to be the key game to this slate that's going to look at it. And I look at it's basically just the four main games because I'm not really liking the Samsung Hanwha game either. But other than that, yeah, I think we have some good plays here and some good matchups, and it's going to be a good slate for us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again to our sponsors, mybookie.ag and TVG. Definitely go to our website so you can take advantage of their wonderful offers. Again, that's at dfscoachtalk.com. And we'll be back again tomorrow with another KBO podcast, so please do tune in for that. On behalf of Shane Caldwell and the coach, I'm Andrew Hansen, and please tune in again tomorrow for the next episode of DFS Coach Talk.